We'd just like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today for our Caring for the Carers session. It's a presented collaboration between Carers Gateway, Vision Australia and MS Plus as part of the National Carers Week. My name is Dominica Maloney and I'm a clinical development lead with Vision Australia, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. We will commence the session with an acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the many lands that we meet today. I'm on Wiradjuri land, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. Thank you again for being here. So today's session we're lucky to have 3 people on our panel, and we'll be doing a short introduction of each of our panel members and then asking a couple of questions about their role as being a carer or their experience. So first up today, we have Namoy Malcolm. So Namoy is Vision Australia's Emotional and Social Support Programs lead. He currently oversees emotional and social support initiatives for people with blindness or low vision. Namoy was born without vision in his left eye due to toxoplasmosis. Then later, in 1998, at the age of 18, he lost vision in his right eye following a retinal detachment. Since losing his vision, Namoy has relocated from the United States to Australia and started a family. Namoy now focuses his energy on helping people rediscover their confidence, purpose, and joy after vision loss. He wants to empower individuals to live fully and show the world that life after vision loss is rich, equal, and full of possibility. Welcome, Namoy. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Dominica, and it's a privilege to be here with everyone today.
Thank you. So, Namoy, what are your needs as a person who lives with vision loss?
For me, as someone who lives with vision loss, I think the most important need that can be met by family members and supporters and carers who care about someone with vision loss is communication. Communication, I think, is the key that helps me understand my world around me, and it enables me to feel comfortable enough to ask for and receive support, help, and assistance from others, whether it be people who care about me, as the word carer that we use in our quality living program is described, or whether it's a family member or supporter, which is the language that we use at Vision Australia.
Excellent. Thanks, Namoy, for that. And how can your family and supporters support you to live the life you choose?
Thank you, Dominica. Again, it really comes back to that communication, especially in the beginning when someone first loses vision. There's a grief and loss component to losing something valued, something that we often take for granted because we don't expect to lose it. Once grief and loss kicks in, for the person directly affected by vision loss, that grief and loss is something that takes each person time to come to grips with the experience. For carers and supporters who too also go through a grief and loss period, albeit faster than the person who is directly affected. When this occurs, people who are indirectly affected can often want to support that individual that they care about to go through their grief and loss journey a bit faster. And by keeping the doors of communication open, especially around feelings and emotions, what it does is it enables everyone to understand where they're up to in that grief and loss journey, especially during the withdrawal stage, when the person who is directly affected by change in or loss of vision takes that time out to really begin to understand his or her experience. For those who are indirectly affected, this can be a period of concern, frustration, because we're not quite sure what's happening for the people who we care about. So opening the door to communication in this space is crucial. It means that for that person who is experiencing the change in or loss of vision in this case, that they have an opportunity to say, you know what, I am needing some time to understand my experience. And for you, the carer or the family member or the supporter, it gives you an opportunity to say, hey, I understand that you're going through this thing and I just want to be there for you.
Mm.
Thanks, Dominica.
Thanks, Namoy. That reminder that, that checking in, because sometimes as carers, we want to do the right thing, but that opportunity to actually stop and actually check what is the right thing at the moment, how can we best help you or best support you, is a really, really important piece. Thank you, Namoy, so much for sharing that.
Pleasure.
We'll now move on to Bridie. So Bridie is a registered nurse who retired earlier this year from her role as a nurse advisor at MS Plus. After committing the last 15 years to community health, predominantly in palliative care, pain management, and within the MS community. Bridie has lived experience as a carer and is now concentrating on her caring role of a person living with MS. Bridie, thank you for your time today. What are some of the early warning signs of carer burnout or stress?
Yeah, really important subject. And thank you, Lamoya. That was just passionate listening to you. I really enjoyed that. There is burnout. So that's a word that a lot of people have heard of. So what does that actually mean? So we'll explore that a little. So caring for a loved one can be meaningful and rewarding, but also physically and mentally exhausting. And it's often thrust upon a carer suddenly and requires a great deal of sacrifice, especially if that role is long term. Burnout can be sneaky and may not be recognised until it undermines your actual health and well-being. Often find it occurs when the care you provide exceeds your resources. And sometimes we don't actually know what else that person is dealing with. It might not just be that person that you're caring for. You might be a young mum. You might have other illnesses in the family. You might have other people that you need to look out for. But when the care you provide exceeds your resources, you get this feelings of physical, emotional, and intellectual exhaustion. And that can steadily get worse over time. Burnout's actually not your fault. It's the inevitable response in giving too much when you cannot access the resources to replenish your own well-being. So some signs of burnout can be really subtle. So I wonder if anyone listening has noticed any of these. Irritability, exhaustion, depression, social withdrawal or isolation, unable to concentrate, maybe chronic fatigue, frustration, loss of interest, feeling helpless, altered sleep patterns and sleeplessness, frequently ill, maybe increased pain. Often there's an ongoing caregiver guilt and resentment. And you may find that the carer is needing an increase in things like analgesics or turning to a little bit more alcohol or even having altered relationships with the person that you love. Despite this, many caregivers actually still feel guilty about their burnout. They worry that it signals a lack of care or concern when the reality is that burnout is the product of high commitment and care. Unfortunately, if the carer is burnt out, the person who has the disease or injury and that entire family unit will suffer and risk losing that very person who probably cares for and loves them the most. Thanks, Dominica.
Yeah, there's some big topics and areas that you raised there, Bridie. So as a carer, we need to look after ourselves to be able to continue in the role. And like you said, try and refill those resources so you can continue in the role. So how do you look after yourself as a carer, and how do you prioritize self-care?
Yeah, really, really cool. Very, very passionate about this. I've been there, so I understand it. And self care is really hard to digest initially. But if you consider yourself a battery and you're always trying to function in the red, you'll eventually lose all your charge and be absolutely no good to anyone who needs you. So it's really important first to recognize those signs of stress and burnout and reach out for support. It is okay. It's okay to say you're not okay, and it's really important that you do so. So some of the things that you can do, and we have someone talking about Carers Gateway is a really good resource. Local organisations often have their own carer support programs. You can get mental health plans and get psychology and counselling through seeing your GP, even just speaking to your GP to say, hey, I'm not feeling okay. I've noticed that I'm doing this, or people are actually pointing out that I'm not okay. Maybe I should, take some steps to do something. Learning about that authentic communication with your loved one and how to put up constructive barriers. Namoy talked about communication. It is really, really vital. But you've got to learn to nurture your own needs as well and suppress guilt. But sometimes you need that professional input to be able to do that. You need to find outlets of enjoyment away from your caring role. I sing in a couple of choirs. I've taken up painting. That's what I like to do. I get lost in that world. It's a little fantasy world, but you might be a writer, you might like gardening, you might like yoga, you might like swimming, you might want to go on a retreat and just chill out for a few days, visiting friends. And most importantly, address your own health needs. Don't ignore them.
There's some great ideas that you've shared there, Bridie, and it just seems, sometimes that first step of maybe connecting in with your GP and having that conversation can actually open up, lots of options to help our carers, I suppose,
Absolutely.
maintain their health and continue in their role. I love that analogy with the battery. We can't keep working in the red. We do have to step in and kind of get that recharge, through, different activities that people might engage in.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you, Bridie. And our final member of the panel is Courtney. So Courtney has 20 years of lived experience as a young carer for her mum, who lives with multiple sclerosis. Courtney brings deep personal understanding and empathy to her role as a young carer engagement advisor at Carers Gateway. She is passionate about amplifying the voices of young carers and ensuring that young people with caring responsibility are recognised, supported and empowered to thrive. Drawing on both her professional expertise and lived experience, she works to bridge the gap between policy and real-world impact for carers across Victoria. Welcome, Courtney. Thank you for your time today. To start off, what do you think is the most important thing people should understand about being a carer?
Firstly, thank you for having me along. I'm just wanted to note that, and listening to Namoy and Bridie, I was nodding along and resonating with a lot of the things that you guys have said, because in my own caring journey, I was like, oh, that was a feeling I was having when I was 14, and that was a feeling or burnout like at VCE during high school. So I think it was quite interesting going, my caring journey has been quite varied and quite complex. And I think the most important thing people should realize about being a carer is it is a term, it is a label, but at the end of the day, we're family members, we're friends that are supporting and advocating for a loved one. Like Namoy was saying, a lot of the time we just want to fix it. Something has changed, there's been a new diagnosis or a shift in our dynamic of the family. And as a loved one, you just want to fix it. You want to help. You want to do what you can to make their life easier and better. And sometimes we can't fix it. We can't undo the diagnosis. We can't undo what has changed. But we can help and we can support. And that's obviously where caring comes into play. The caring role is 24/7, whether it's extremely complex, physical help, or like, emotional well-being as well and support. Even if we're not physically present, we're constantly thinking, what can we do next? What can we link our loved one in with? NDIS, My Aged Care, Carer Gateway, other support services. Our mind's just always constantly ticking into how we can best support our loved one. And in doing that, being the best advocate that we can for our loved one, we sometimes forget about ourselves and the caring role, and the impact that can have on our physical well-being, our emotional well-being as well. I think as well, it's important to note that caring isn't necessarily a choice. You just do it out of the love that of your family member. And that's a bit of a stigma that we have in this world, is a lot of people don't identify with the term carer because obviously it has different meanings. It's a universal word for many different things. And it's very much, I guess, an umbrella term as well for support. So if you identify with the term carer, it opens up a world of support. But if you don't identify with that word, you might not know that there's support out there or know that it's okay to access that support. So obviously I'm here to talk about Carer Gateway, but also the importance of knowing that there's support out there and that it's okay to access. I found in my experience caring for my mum since I was 7, obviously I was a child. I didn't have the ability to research or go to appointments and that type of stuff because I was a child. It was very much an adult issue, an adult problem. So again, going back to communication, even for a child, it's very important to have age-appropriate conversations so they can learn a little bit about the diagnosis or the caring responsibility, and not have that guilt or that worry and anxiety because things have changed in the household and they can't necessarily relate to their peers because they don't have these extra responsibilities. I also found that I got wonderful qualities becoming a carer. I suddenly became a lot more mature, a lot quicker. Everyone was like, oh, you're very wise for your age. I felt that I got a lot more empathy because, you put your heart and soul into looking after your loved one, and that's a skill that every carer has. And I think as well, it's important that you at least know about support, but also I think it's also the job of us at Carer Gateway and other support services too to make sure that support is known and promoted and accessible as well. Because I know when I was growing up, I benefited from school holiday programs and respite and counselling, and I wouldn't have been able to access any of that if I didn't know that I was a carer or had other people kind of help me identify that my home life was a bit different to my peers, and it was okay to access those supports as well. So I think it's really important that however you identify, whether it's as a carer, a sister, a brother, a father, a mother, that you know that you can access support.
You raised some great points there, and that journey and that identity, there is a piece for us as service providers within this space to help connect people in, even if they don't, that label of the word carer, they may not relate to it, but there is help out there for them if they're, whatever role they have within that family or as a friend. Thank you for that. So tell us a little bit about how services like Carer Gateway can be utilised to support people in similar roles.
Yeah, sure. So the Carer Gateway is a free government program that provides emotional and practical supports to carers. I work predominantly in the Victoria branch, but it is Australia-wide. And they provide things such as peer support, so getting together with other carers that might be in a similar role, looking after someone in a similar situation, or just people your age as well. And that can, not necessarily be sitting around in a circle being like, hi, I'm Courtney and I look after a mum who has MS. It can be going bowling. It can be going to the movies. It can be going out for a cuppa, that real fun community aspect. Some other things we offer as well is counselling, which I know I've really benefited from during my many different milestones of growing up. I was having a conversation the other day with someone, and especially from a young carer's perspective, we obviously know as our parents get older that, we might have to look into care homes, or we might have to give our support a bit more to aging parents. But as a young person, those milestones aren't a part of the natural pathway of life. So when you're a young person and your mum, your dad, your sister, or your brother do get a diagnosis, or the situation in the home does change with caring responsibilities, it's really important to link in early with support and know that the support is out there for you. So we do also have things like school holiday programs for young people. We have coaching, which can be really beneficial, especially if you need, a bit of motivation or cheerleader in your corner as well, or you're working towards a goal and you just need that extra support. That's also really beneficial. And we also have respite and emergency respite, which is a really big one, as I know that things can often quickly change in our caring roles. It's not something that's planned. It's very unpredictable, and it's very much out of our hands, and that can be quite a stressful, emotional time. So one of my biggest pieces of advice is, whether it's Carer Gateway or another support service, link in early. You don't need a reason to link in. You don't need things to be getting worse. It can just be like, hey, there's this new diagnosis in the family, or, there's increasing responsibilities. I just want to get ahead of before anything happens, touch wood. So definitely contact as soon as possible. So if you do need to access respite, if things do go pear-shaped, it means we've got everything in place pretty much, that it's just like, this is the current situation, let's see what we can do, rather than having to get those geographical details like your name and all that type of stuff. That's the last thing you want to do. So definitely that would be a good move to do today, is contact Carer Gateway, get your details down. So if you do need to access that, we're ready to go. We also have tailored support packages, which is keyword tailored. So I've obviously talked about family members, and we do very much want to what we call the whole family approach. So we don't just want to talk to mum and hope that we give support just to mum and that filters through to the whole family. We want to talk to every single member and make sure that mum gets the support that she needs, and her other children get support that they need. Dad gets the support he needs as well. So that way everyone in the family is looked after and supported, so that everyone can continue doing the wonderful role that they're doing in their caring responsibilities. With Carer Gateway as well, it is free. It's not means tested. So if you are getting a Centrelink payment like carer's allowance or carer payment, that doesn't impact it at all. And one of the key things as well is you don't have to be an Australian citizen. That obviously is a bit of a barrier when it comes to things like Centrelink. For the carer payment and allowance, you do have to be an Australian citizen. That is not the case with Carer Gateway. And being a very multicultural country, that definitely makes support and access a lot more easier for families that need it as well. I just also want to plug as well, there are two things that I always kind of talk about as well, just in case you haven't heard about it or don't know about it. We do have a thing called the Victorian Carer Card here in Victoria, and it basically gives the same discounts as the seniors card, except maybe the senior meal discounts at restaurants. So all you need to do is, I'll share this later on via email or in the chat as well. But it helps give discounts and benefits for like local businesses, public transport, and community organisations as well. And the Young Carer Bursary Program, if you have a loved one that is helping to look after yourself, or a loved one aged between 12 and 25, the Young Carer Bursary Program is currently open. The bursary is up to $4,000, and it can go towards things like school uniforms, books, laptops, school activities, etc. So one of the big things about accessing support like Carer Gateway is we help link you into all these other programs and initiatives. So your loved one might be able to get the Young Carer Bursary and then still also use the tailored support package for other things at Carer Gateway. So you might think you know what's out there, or you may have called Carer Gateway in the past, but definitely worth another check-in or another call just to go, this is the current situation. What is out there for me? What can you do to make my life a little bit easier? And we go from there.
Courtney, thank you so much for sharing all that information. I've been jotting down things as you've been talking. And what's come through is that it's individual, the journey that you're on as a carer, and your support at Carers Gateway is, you know, those tailored programs. It's about finding the right support for each person in the family or in the household who's taking on those responsibilities as a carer. Thank you very much for sharing all of that information. I think you'll be certainly getting some calls later today at Carers Gateway. While we're waiting to see if any other questions come through, there's one that comes to mind that I'd love to ask each of our panel members. What's your top tip or your one bit of advice that you would give carers? Namoy, we might jump to you as the first person who spoke.
Sure. Thanks, Dominica. I think for me, if I reflect on my lived experience and the experiences of the many individuals who have gone through our quality living program, I would say that my top tip for carers would be perhaps I'd say be kind to yourself. As you go through these changes and you walk alongside the person you care about, the person you love, often there's a sense of guilt, there's a sense of responsibility. And I would say to you that this is a continuation of your partnership with that person that you love and care about. As you work together to begin this new journey, it's really important that you are kind to yourself and that you make space for what Bridie was talking about earlier when she talked about supporting yourself as much as it is supporting the person you care about. That would be my top tip.
Excellent. Thank you, Namoy. That's really good because it's not a one-day thing. This is a journey. Bridie?
Yeah, very similar to Namoy, actually. I think being a human being, you've got to realize that you are a human being. And as you know, I made an analogy about the battery before. You've only got so much energy to expel. So my top tip would be nurturing yourself, because nurturing yourself ultimately nurtures the ones you love and care for. And I think that sort of sums up basically what I was talking about earlier.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, that care for yourself flows through into the care for the person you're looking after. Yeah, that's really good. And Courtney, your top tip?
I think advocate for yourself as much as you do for the person you're caring for. I think, like I was saying earlier, we do really focus on our loved ones because they're the most important person in our world, and we want the best for them and we want to fix it. And, you know, that's the way that we kind of attempt to fix it. And, you know, everyone does a wonderful job navigating the many systems and, you know, different avenues of support. And there are many, but they are kind of all separate. But I think, yeah, definitely advocate for yourself as a carer. Especially when it comes to Carer Gateway, I like to kind of say, sit down and think of the last 2 weeks and think of what does your worst day look like. I know that's kind of a bit of a morbid thought, but I think sometimes as carers we downplay everything. We're like, it's not that bad. Other people have got it worse. I don't need support. Someone else needs it more than I do. You know, other people, you know, again, we're thinking of others rather than ourselves. So I think, you know, it's not selfish to think of yourself sometimes, you know, to sit down and kind of write the worst 2 weeks, or like, you know, what the last 2 weeks looks like. So when you access support, you're really giving us a proper picture of what your needs are and where those gaps are, rather than going, oh, it's not too bad. And then we're like, oh, this person's actually doing all right, but you're on the verge of a breakdown or burnout. So I think taking that time to kind of go, what do I need support with, and whether Carer Gateway can offer it or not, we can definitely point you in the right direction or to other services as well. So, you know, you're not left in the lurch, you're not left feeling that you're alone in this journey. There's a lot of other people going through similar journeys, and there is a lot of support out there. So I think that's definitely my advice, is advocate for yourself as well.
Excellent. And that kind of links in beautifully with Bridie about, looking after yourself is looking after the person that you're caring for. Thank you. Just a reminder, we will send the links and those sorts of things. So Courtney did post in the chat about the Young Carer Bursary Program. All of those things will be included as part of the email that is sent out following. So if you haven't got a chance to grab it out of the chat, don't worry, that will come out as part of it. We've had a question come through from Hayley, who's asked if she could hear more about the counselling service from Carer Gateway. Is it ongoing, or is it a helpline that someone might access?
Yeah, sure. So when you call Carer Gateway on the 1-800 number that's in the chat, but you will get it in the email as well, or if you search Carer Gateway online, you'll find it on the website. There is actually an option to talk to someone at intake, or to talk to a counsellor on the phone as well. So we do have phone counselling, and that's accessible through that avenue. We also have in-person counselling as well as group counselling. And another option, it's pulling the curtain back a little bit, but I think, transparency is good in these things as well. There is an option, if you've found someone that you've got a rapport with, that there is an option to bring them on as a provider. So that way Carer Gateway can continue to fund those sessions, rather than, getting you to build a rapport with someone else and that type of stuff. There are obviously checks and paperwork that goes in that, so it's not always as straightforward as I would like, but that is an option as well. I think it's also the standard 6 sessions too, but I guess the benefit with the Carer Gateway counselling is they are generally people that have got the carer's lens, as we say, so they understand the caring role, they understand the different implications and impacts that can have on yourself and your family as well. So some of them have lived experience as well. But I think as well, in regards to ongoing counselling, Carer Gateway is a short-term service, but it's not a one-time service. So we tend to try and set you up as best we can, and then you can continue doing the wonderful things you're doing. But if you ever need us again or need to relink back in, you're more than welcome to do so. So yeah, it's the standard, I believe, 6 sessions, but that obviously can be returned to and readdressed down the track if need to reuse that.
Excellent. Thank you, Courtney, for sharing that extra information about the counselling service. Is there anyone who wants to add anything else before we wrap up today's webinar?
I've just seen a question about the carer card from Simone as well. So this isn't necessarily access through Carer Gateway. So to get a Victorian carer card, as long as you live in Victoria and you're an unpaid primary carer of the carer definition, someone with a disability, severe or chronic medical condition, someone with mental illness, an aged person with care needs, basically anyone that's probably here in this webinar today. The way to access it is via that website. There's a form that you can fill out, and you're eligible if you get the Centrelink carer payment and carer allowance. If you're a foster care or kinship carer, you can get a stat deck declaring you as a primary carer. You can also get an authorised professional confirming you're a primary carer. So, for example, a doctor. We've recently had conversations with the government to see if that can be changed to like a caring organisation. So you might be able to get a letter from like Carer Gateway, for example, saying, yes, Courtney is a carer, is eligible for this as well. And we've also recently had it be made more accessible for young carers too. And that can be filled out or like signed off by a school teacher or a carer organisation as well. So that helps reduce the accessibility. As in the past, you had to get the Centrelink carer payment or allowance, or you had to have like doctor forms and all that. And that's very, very intense. There's more paperwork. People don't want to do that. But it's definitely been made a lot more accessible. So definitely recommend jumping on the website that I've linked in the chat, or you'll get in the email, and seeing if you're eligible, as it's been made a lot more accessible recently.
Excellent. And that's great to hear that you don't maybe need to have another appointment with someone, because that is, another barrier. Excellent. So we've just had a question. The Carer Gateway services are all short-term solutions. Is that correct, Courtney? I think you just mentioned it's kind of like a short-term response with Carer Gateway.
Yeah, so Carer Gateway isn't a case management model. It is short-term support, but it's hoping that it has long-term solutions. So like with the counselling and coaching, obviously that's short-term. The respite, you know, unfortunately we can't provide yearly respite. I wish we had the funds for that, and, you know, obviously making that more accessible. But I think it's just a very much, like Bridie was kind of mentioning, prevent burnout, you know, bring things back, like, you know, back to not simmering or boiling or anything like that, and connecting people back into their community and other services. So there's constant support, whether it's from Carer Gateway or other services too. There's always something happening or accessible, so the care is well looked after.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can re-engage as many times as you like.
So it sounds like there's a short-term intervention with long-lasting impacts of it. Yeah. Excellent. I just want to say thank you, Courtney, Bridie, Namoy, for sharing today. It's been really great to hear your insights, and thank you for your time. We hope this session has offered some practical ideas and reminders about the importance of self-care and support when caring for someone. And I've jotted down in my notes that when you nurture yourself, you're nurturing the person, you're caring for that person that you care for. On behalf of MS Plus, Carer Gateway and Vision Australia, thank you again for being a part of this National Carers Week event and for the vital role that you play in supporting others every day. Thank you very much for your time.